Hello everyone, welcome to my very small YouTube channel about knitting. My name is Isabelle, I am in France, I have 3 sons and I have 3 cats. Some have said it's related. And I'm filming these videos in English because I miss my English very much. I used to live in the United States, but that was over 32 years ago. And I don't have many opportunities to be talking in English, so you are my opportunity to do so about once a week. Today it's gonna be a video about that belongs to my Woolly News series. I'm not a journalist, but sometimes there are things I see and that catch my eye or my attention, and this is what has caught my eye and attention for about 4 or 5 weeks since I last filmed such a video. And so if my accent and my hesitations and my mistakes do not bother you too much, and if an episode about the Woolly News, that what I've seen in the last 4 or 5 weeks is of some interest to you, please stay tuned. So first, what am I wearing? I'm just coming back from work. It's been a very difficult day once again in France today, but I managed to teach. My students managed to have their classes, and I'm back home. It's later in the day, so I hope the lights will be okay and won't bother us too much, because the sun is turning and I don't want it to go straight into the cameras because it's not going to be working. So what am I wearing today aside my regular clothes? My Elven shawl. This shawl I knit 2 years ago. Yes, I think I finished it 2 years ago. And it's a gift from my sons for, I guess, Christmas 2020. They bought both the pattern and the yarn for me. Yarn is cocoon yarn. It's the one that was recommended in the sample and in the pattern. My first take at Intarja, my first take at Bubbles, there were plenty of both of them in the pattern. At some time, it was difficult to knit, I have to say, because at some point I had 6 or 7 different, not bobbins, I had just made little balls of yarn because I did not want to cut the yarn, because I wanted to be able to use it again in some other project what I had left over. And so yes, I enjoyed knitting it when there were not too many little strands of yarn about everywhere. It was quite of a heavy yarn management. So what I was doing is that I was having my little balls on the table, and when I was knitting in one way, the yarn would cross over. On the other way, depending on how I would turn my project, it would uncross, untie by itself. So once I had understood that, at first I didn't, it was a bit complicated, but once I had, understood all of that, it was more easy for me. And I love the central patterns. I usually wear it that way, but I like when you can see other patterns on the sides. So I kind of arrange it so that you can see about everything, and sometimes I wear it just on my shoulders. I'm not sure I said the Elven shawl is by France Paulin, and the yarn was cocoon yarn, and they ordered it online from a store that unfortunately had to close after the pandemic. So a store in the Netherlands. So yes, I do wear it quite often, and I love it, but I think I haven't showed it to you in quite some time. So what do we have on the menu for today? A pattern, a paid for pattern, a free pattern. I usually try to give you ideas for free patterns too, because not everyone can buy and buy and buy and buy patterns, and I'm on a no buy for yarn, unless I'm within my own guidelines, and now also low buy or no buy for digital patterns. So that's one paid for, one free pattern. A trend that this section I may change the title of the trend a bit, because it's more like coincidences and echoes that you can find. So it's trends or echoes or and echoes now. So one echo you can find between patterns. News about a yarn company, a book, and then to finish, who am I knitting with? So which series am I watching, and which music am I listening to right now while I knit? So this first pattern, it's the Dancing Ribbons pullover by Tanis Gray. It's been published online on Ravelry. It's also on the Plucky Knitter. It was on the Plucky Knitter mailing list, but I saw it somewhere else, and I'm very sorry. I do not recall where. I tried to find it again. Was it a video? Was it a blog spot? Was it in the my mailing lists, in my emails, other than the Plucky Knitter that provided some yarn for some of the samples? I don't know. But anyway, what caught my attention about this pattern was at the same time an unusual and a familiar color work on the yoke. So it's a yoke pullover, it's a color work yoke, and at the same time familiar because it reminds me of the gingham type of pattern. I guess it's on purpose. I haven't read all the description, and maybe they do refer to gingham patterns, but it's positioned in the funny way. And so it's a ribbon. It's called ribbon. There is ribbon in the title. So I guess there are some parts of the gingham type of pattern that can remind you of ribbons, maybe. But anyway, so two things that caught my attention and my eye. First, that type of pattern. And second, most probably the color combination that was on the first sample. These turquoise and kind of peachy tones, I like the combination of the two quite a bit. And I guess that's what caught my eye at that time, even though there is one other project with a monochromatic color between gray, dark gray, black, and white that is as stunning as the colorful version. It's worsted weight yarn. It's made for worsted weight, but there is quite an extensive sizing. I guess I have to retrieve where I have it on my tabs here. Yes, quite an extensive size palette between 31 and so that's, I guess, let me see, I'm not sure between the centimeters and the inches. Yeah, 31 inches, so that's 80 centimeters up to, and then let me see, 70.5 inches, that is 179 centimeters. A very large size range, so that's at the same time very inclusive. And also, if you want to play with yarn weight, if you want to knit from your stash, when a pattern has quite an extensive sizing, you can play with your yarn weight, even though you're not meeting gauge. You have sizes below your own size or above your own size, depending on how off you are and in which direction off you are. And so I like when patterns are size inclusive first. Hello Ramses. And I also like when you can knit from different yarn weights and accommodate for what you have in your stash. So that's why I was very interested into that pattern. Both the yoke, the color work on the yoke, that is quite unusual, even though it's a bit familiar too, and the extensive size range that you can, that can be adapted to you, to your needs, to your stash, etc. So the next pattern I want to be talking about is also a more recent pattern. It's been also published in March 2023. I forgot to say that the Dancing Ribbons pullover was also published this month. It's another little scarf. I think the little scarf trend is not out, is not behind us yet. You still see people knitting little scarves. You still see new patterns coming up, and this one is the Soiree scarf. Soiree, not sure how you say that, scarf, by Pearl Soho. So another, not quite triangular, not quite elongated type of scarf pattern with fingering weight, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check that. I think, yes, with fingering weight, you can knit the scarf with 50 grams of yarn. So one ball, one of these lonely skeins you have, or maybe you have leftovers and you can marl or do other things. And this scarf is just perfect because 50 grams, you can buy a couple skeins, or if they are 25 grams, and knit that. And the little scarves, I really think, are still quite popular because it's very easy to carry on. You don't have to wear it. You can have it in your bag, and if there is some kind of a colder wind, or you're changing rooms and the temperature is changing, you can put it on and it's not heavy in your bag. You can have it with you and use it whenever you need to. You can also tie it on your bags and, pimp up your bags. And I think it's being quite popular because it's quite a convenient accessory. And I like the shape that Pearl Soho has designed their own. It's a bit like that, but with my Elven shawl, I'm not always sure what to do with the very long ends. I usually tie a knot in the back, in my back. But then if you want to take it out, you have to reach for your back. So it's these very long pointy ends. I'm not sure I do enjoy wearing them. I'm quite very happy I have it, don't get me wrong. But I prefer more compact little scarves, and this one fit my needs very well according to the different pictures. So there you have it. You can have a look at the pattern. It's free. You can have it free on the Pearl Soho website. So yes, if you are into the little scarves and don't want to buy such a simple pattern, please have a look at this one. And I have one too, you may want to have a look at. Okay, next, trends and ecos. As I said, I kind of adjusted the name of this section because it's not really sometimes it's not really a trend, but it's things I see that have echoes between each other and, click into my head for some reason. So what I want to be talking about today is about the little ruffles you can find at top of t-shirts or garments that are I've seen quite a few patterns now published with that type of a design. Of course, the first one is Darta by La Bien-Aimée. It's in her book. And I forgot to take the book. I have it in my library. I place pictures. I forgot to go take the book out of where I keep them. At first, I'm not that much into these type of very feminine ruffles, but the way La Bien-Aimée executed the samples, the way she presented the samples, maybe she has an extremely good marketing team, I don't know, but this idea stuck into my mind, and that's one of the patterns I had into my mind, saying I want the book for that and see what the pattern is and maybe knit it. Because I have a few ideas of yarn associations I have into my stash, in particular that very beautiful mohair. Rosemary sent me a mohair from Australia. So I've been toying with the idea of knitting such a very feminine t-shirt that is not much into my own line of my own wardrobe. I don't have anything like that in my wardrobe. So I guess one unique piece like this one could be a very good idea. Anyway, so Data, I've already talked about it, I guess. Data is by Aini Sang, and it's in the Neons and Neutral, La Bien-Aimé's book. Another pattern that it's going to be a pet for pattern, and it's not been released yet. It's the Marty by Unit Toronto, and the pattern design, and we are going to be talking about her a bit later on, is by Claudia Quintanilla. So Claudia Quintanilla is the owner of the brick and mortar Unit store in Toronto and of the website and everything, and she's also a knitwear designer. Why did I, what caught my attention about the Marty? First, and I'm not at all into that, you have the pattern that is going to be both in children and adult versions. If you want to have a t-shirt that your children, your younger kids and yourself, or your grandkids and yourself will be wearing, that's a good idea. I've never been matchy-matchy with my sons. I did not like that, but I know some people like that very much. And so there you have one pattern for children, the same pattern for adults, in a different yarn weights and different yarn and different styling on the sleeves and everything. But anyway, that one pattern with the ruffles in the front. I like that idea very much. A little puffy sleeves that Darta does not have. Darta has regular sleeves, and I like that idea very much. And I think these two patterns echo each other because they are just been released, and a very feminine and design with the ruffles on the top. Maybe you like it, and you can have a look at these two interpretations. Okay, next, news about yarn company. Of course, I love Dererum Natura. How do you say that? Dererum Natura. It's a French company that is distributed worldwide and has stock lists about everywhere. So I guess you can find a provider near to you. You don't have to order it from France. And I mostly knit, and I have yarn from them, wool. I have wool. But I've always been very interested into their linen line, and their linen line is Antigone. They have had a very hard time for the last year or so to get flax linen because there was an increase in the world use of flax and linen, and the worldwide needs of flax has exploded, and they were having a very hard time to find some to continue to offer the Antigone line. Anyway, long story short, and I'm quite happy, and I'm gonna have to see if I can go there if it's not too far away. They teamed up with what we call the cooperative. Cooperative, I guess it's the same word in English, in Normandy. So a cooperative is a company that belongs to all the people who work in the company. So there are over 200, maybe more people, from farmers to the people that transform the linen threads to produce yarn, up to the commercial or sales person. And this company is owned by all of these people. And so they produce the yarn, the fiber, the linen fiber, that is sent to Italy into a mill that makes the balls for Dererum Natura. So it's a European project, with part of it being in Normandy. And I knew for a long time that linen cultures were very strong in Normandy, because I have colleagues of mine in biology at the university that are working on these linen fields and cultures with the farmers to grow organic linen. And Dererum Natura uses only organic linen into their yarn, and only process that are respectful of the nature, that save water and everything. No chemicals in the culture, because it's organic, and in the all the process from spinning and everything to dyeing the yarn, the linen yarn, for you to knit. So I like this idea very much. They have extended their color range. There are at least at least 20 different colors. And I've been willing to knit with this type of yarn for a long time. So of course, I'm not going to be buying yarn right now, unless I have knit everything I have. I have many ideas lined up for the time I have no more yarn to be knitting from, or at least no sweater or quantities or shawl quantity to be using. So it's going to be taking me quite a bit of time, but you know, I'm already motivating myself to be knitting through my stash so that I can go get and buy these yarn that I want to be knitting with, because I have plenty of ideas and projects. Next, a book. Of course, you're gonna be telling me, between La Bien-Aimée and Laine Magazine, I'm circling always on the same creators. Yeah, but what can I say? I love what they do. So it's once again Laine Publishing that is going to be releasing sometime in May. Let me check, May 12th. A new book that I'm not going to be getting, but I know many of you have children or grandchildren, and it's Making Memories. It's a book dedicated to gender-neutral patterns for children. I'm not sure where I lie on this gender-neutral thing. I have nothing against, I have nothing for, I guess. I guess it's nice that you can find patterns that are not blue for blue for boys and pink for girls. My boys never were in blue unless they wanted it, and one of them wanted pink all over and had long hair up to the moment he was a teenager, and sometimes in a store called him Miss. He did not like it at all, so he told me, in 3 months from now I'm gonna have my hair cut. Okay, and he cut his hair. And I said, you know, hair grow back, you can do whatever you want, so they can grow back if one day if you want to. He hasn't yet, but okay. So this gender neutral thing as something you push forward, I'm not sure where I stand, because I guess I've always thought you do whatever you want with your knitting, your style and everything. So yeah, anyway, there you have it, gender neutral patterns for kids. So there are, so from newborn to 10 years old, and all, 25 patterns. And all of these patterns, once again, are by Claudia Quintanilla. And so the same one we talk about, the Marty designer. And so, you know, between Unit, Land Publishing, Claudia Q, the circle is, you know, back on itself, and there you have it. I'm right in the middle of these things I like a lot and I talk about. But yeah, you can have a look at the patterns. There is a preview so that you can know before you pre-order, if you want to pre-order. And I liked what I saw. It's the classical, the usual, not classical, the usual Len touch. So yeah, there you have it, a book full of patterns for the kids in your life, or maybe kids who need you to be knitting things, because I'm using my acrylic stash, the stash that my mother gave me, to knit things for my own children, but I've been considering using some of it for children in need. There are several projects around me, and or a blanket or something. So yes, I haven't ventured into knitting things for babies and children since my own kids were grown-ups. But yeah, I'm considering using part of my acrylic stash for children who may need that. So yeah, children in your life, or children who may be needing, you know, a sweater or a hat or some other things. Okay, so we have everything I wanted to be talking about, knitting per se and yarn and everything. I'm going to be moving to my next section, which is who am I knitting with? And you know, I watch series, movies and series when I'm knitting, and I listen to music a lot of music. One colleague stayed at home for a week. He was having difficulties in his own life, and you know, as he knows I have several rooms that are available because my kids are out of the house now. He asked me if he could come by for a few days until things settled. So I said, yes, of course, you come whenever you want, whenever you need. And he was so surprised about all the music I was listening to. He said, but you get up in the morning, you put some music on, and right now I put the news on the radio, public radio, but because I don't like commercials at all. But yeah, there is always sound in my house. And when I have listened to the news and I have a glimpse and glance or an idea of what's going on, I listen to music all the time. When I come back home, I listen to music. When I eat, I listen to music. And in the evening, either I watch a show, series, or a movie or something, or I listen to music once again when I need. So he was very surprised, and I said, okay, that's so funny that you are surprised, because it's so usual for me, such my life. And my children are exactly the same. And in particular, my youngest son, who is studying, is a musician, and he's in musicology, he's in his first year of master degrees in musicology. And when he's at home, they always say, when we hear your music in the weekend, so I usually start to play if they are here later on, because I know they are sleeping. When we hear the sound of your music, we know it's time for us to get up and come down. Yeah. And my youngest son also listens to music all the time. And my two other ones, maybe a little bit less, but they have speakers, they have computers, and they have good little speakers so that they can listen to the music. It's important to them because it's been so important to me since I was a teenager. And, since I bought these 2 or 3 cassettes by Pink Floyd when I got this cassette player as a Christmas present when I was 13 years old or something. And ever since, I've been listening to music and cassette, vinyls, CDs, and now digital music. But I'll always listen to music. So this section, one series I've been watching, and music suggestion. Okay. Last time, I'm not sure I recall whether I had finished watching The Office or not. I watched the whole 9 seasons. I liked it. I liked the end of it. It's not a very recent series, and I'm not sure why it took me so long to have a watch. Maybe because the title of it I did not like. Even though my kids were telling me, you should watch it. It's really, 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 really good. And indeed, it is extremely good. And I liked the end. The end was not the end I was expecting. And once again, I was thinking, how is it going to be ending? Because if it ends on a note I do not like, this is what I'm going to keep. And I'm not going to be liking the whole thing. The end is good. If you haven't watched it, please do. You won't regret spending 9 seasons and maybe 20 or 22 episodes per season to be watching a little bit at a time. I really enjoyed it. So once it was finished, I had to find another series. So I've been watching the first 2 seasons of Picard from Star Trek. The first 2 seasons, I have to say, I watched them out of my own fidelity or my own faith, or being faithful to my younger self. When I discovered Star Trek when I was in the US, I guess, and I watched, it was Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, I think. And once I discovered Next Generation, I watched all the other older series that were airing on cable TV. And so I did like that, and I watched the movies after I came back to France, I guess. I'm not sure there were any movies before. Maybe I watched a movie when I was in the US, but I'm sure I watched the other movies once I went back to France. I love sci-fi, I love Star Trek, I love everything around it. And I liked all the evolutions of Star Trek. Even though some people were very, critical about some of the movies were not as interesting as others. Some of the episodes of the series were not as interesting as others. Yeah, but overall, I enjoyed watching Star Trek. When I started to watch Picard, I was, I'm watching because I want to be faithful to my Star Trek love. Honestly, I do get it was a series around Jean-Luc Picard, if you want to have it with my French accent. But I was a bit lost. It was about all of his stories, and it was very complicated, moving back and forth in time, moving from place to other places. His old mind and how his mind is structured and what happened in his own mind when he was a kid, and how the kid he was and what happened when in his childhood has shaped him. Yeah, it's of some interest. Yeah, I guess. But it was not Star Trek. It was not the sci-fi adventure with fights and lightnings and space travel and new worlds and new species. It was none of that. It was all on Picard, who he is, his life, what's made him, his hesitations and his, but honestly, I did not enjoy the first season, two seasons. When the third season was out, I did not watch it. And then, after The Office was finished, I said, okay, maybe I need to watch the third season of Picard, Star Trek Picard. And maybe it took me 2 or 3 evenings. I watched, there are 6 episodes that are released as of today. And when this episode will be out on a Friday, this Friday night will be the 7th, I think. And I like and I love this third season of Picard. It's the classical Star Trek. Space travel, bad guys, good guys, bad gals, good gals. Some of the older actors and characters are back. So we are at the same time back into Star Trek, but with the kids of these characters in the present moment. And you have fights, you have plots, you have adventures, you have space travel, you have new species, you have lightnings and fury, and you have the Enterprise or the Titan as it's now. But I like very much this third season, and if you did not like the first 2 seasons of Picard, I do encourage you to watch the third one because I'm enjoying it very much. So I'll be waiting for the episode each week. I don't like that at all. Now that we can, sort of binge watch and watch all the episodes back to back, I don't like to be waiting for a week to have the next one, but unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do that, and I will. Okay, next, and it's gonna be the last segment of this video. Who am I listening to right now? Right now, and who am I listening to unusually? So I'm going to be talking about, maybe you know him, maybe you do not. His name is, or his stage name is Yodelis. Yodelis is a French musician. I discovered him in 2014 when I saw him at a music festival that is taking place in the area. So I go about every year. And I went last year after 2 years with the pandemic. The festival did not take place, and we were very, very happy. It's a music festival that is at first it was 2 days, and now it's 3 days with a day before. And last year, as it was coming back from 2 years without taking place, it was 5 days. And maybe 40,000 people each day, a lot of people, and very good music, mostly electronica, but you also have all these rock stars, and one day maybe I will talk about that. But anyway, Yodelis. I guess so I first heard about him at that festival when my kids were so excited to be seeing him. So it's about electronica, a bit of, so that's the first one I bought was Cardioid. So you have Tree of Life, which he published a bit earlier. And this one, Yodelis, is from last year, I guess. I do not recall. No, a bit before that, 2013. And so these are the 3 CDs I have. He has published a bit more than that, but you can listen to him on all of the usual platforms. And what I like is that it's not that of a soft music. You can have more rocky type of vibes at some point. I like his voice. I like his voice very much. A deep voice, I love him. I love this type of voice. And that reminds me of a journalist at a French public radio that I listened to when I was a teenager. His voice was having me going up the curtains, as we say in French. And I listened to him for more than 10 or 15 years. When after he stopped after a while, I would listen to him in my car after I was a grown-up with a car. Yeah, I like voices, and I like his voice, a deeper voice, and it's easy listening. It's not a very intellectual or complicated type of music or type of it's not very rocky and or too loud, and he sings in English. So there you have it. If you don't like people singing in languages you do not understand, he sings in English. So yes, Yodelis, I like him very much, and I hope you will enjoy if you give him an attentive ear. Okay, so that's it for today. I'm thanking you very much for staying with me these, I do not know, 51 minutes, but I'm going to be having to cut parts, so maybe less than that, maybe 45 minutes once I've edited the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know down below if there are some things that have caught your own attention as a pattern, or there is one pattern someone talked about to me a few days back, and I'm going to be including it at some point in a Willy News series. So yeah, please tell me what has caught your own attention, or a trend or an echo, a pattern, maybe some series or some films or movies or music you've been listening to, some news about, I do not know, young companies that are close to you and that are maybe worth sharing with other people. And yes, I thank you very much for spending that time with me, for bringing me joy and happiness every time you comment down below my videos. And I do hope your knitting will bring you joy and happiness for the next week or the next few days. And I will see you next time.